Chapter 1. Angels and Miracles. I stopped by the gas station after work to get some milk. I knew I did not have money in my account to make this purchase, but I was banking on my card allowing an overdraft. I think at the time a gallon of milk was around $2 or $3. I went to the refrigerator and grabbed a gallon, and at the same time I was trying to log into my bank app to triple check if by some miracle I had money in there. I walked to the checkout queue. My login was taking too long to load, so when my turn came, I turned to the man who was waiting behind me and told him he could go before me. When he was done, I walked up to the till and placed the milk on the counter, and the guy at the register was like, "That man paid for your milk." I froze for a few seconds and told the man thank you and ran out the door so I could thank that man. There was no one there, no car taking off in sight, no one. I stood there for a few minutes wondering what had just happened. Had he seen me trying to log into my account and figured I did not have the money? Was this his way of saying thank you for letting me go before you? Even if it was all those reasons, the time that had lapsed between our purchases had not been that long for me to not at least have seen him take off. During that time, I'd always asked and hoped God would do one of those extra supernatural miracles where you wake up and there's a large sum of money in your account, or like an instant healing. I'm talking about the parting of seas type of miracles. I'm talking the type of miracles that sometimes churches sell for our faith. But I realize as I write this book and retracing my steps that my life so far has been nothing short of miracles that unfold in not so significant ways, that it is so easy to not realize them as they happen or they continue to happen. I came across many angels. After giving birth to my son, I was sitting in the bed alone when I heard a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When Mfundisi from the church that I had just started attending walked in, I shifted my position and sat up and said, Mfundisi Magadi, which means Mfundisi, how are you? And he responded, Makorokoto, congratulations, with a smile on his face. I slowly got out of bed and took my son out of his bassinet where he was and handed him to Mfundisi. He took him, prayed for him, spoke blessings on his life. We chatted for a few minutes and then he left. I was numb after they handed my son over to me after I gave birth. I tried to picture those emotions mothers feel the first time they hold their babies. It was only after some of the medication had worn off when I woke up and looked at him sleeping in the bassinet that I was like, oh, that's my baby. Hi, baby. But still, not the emotions I anticipated or felt I needed to feel. I survived a difficult journey throughout my pregnancy. I think my mind just went into survival mode. I couldn't afford the mushy emotions. I needed to survive and do the best I could do and make sure that I'm somewhat healthy for myself and the baby. I completely zoned out throughout my pregnancy. My prayers felt like whispers, full of hesitation to even dare ask God for help because listen, you're a sinner. And here you are, having fornicated and found yourself here. So how dare you? I felt I deserved everything I was going through, the hardships, the pain. In my mind, maybe if I could show God, God see, I'm paying for my sins, that maybe that would warrant my forgiveness and redemption. And so everything that I was going through, I deserved it because in my mind, this is how God forgives me, by showing him that, the same day Mfundisi left, another lady I barely knew from church showed up with a lime green lunchbox with beef stew, vegetables, and salsa. I totally inhaled it in seconds. If any of you know me, you know that I love Zaza. I kept that lunchbox for years until it got lost, probably in transition when I would move around apartments. Because for me, it was a representation of absolute kindness. My love language is when people do the smallest things that represent caring and love. I kept a lot of things during this phase. A table and chairs that Mfundisi had given me when we had moved out of his house. And me and my mother would use it to hang the baby's clothes to dry in the winter after hand washing them, since we didn't have a washer and dryer. On the day I was due to get discharged, I was just sitting there wondering what the next step would be. Whether I should call a taxi. The lady who had brought me to the hospital and stayed with me during labor had gone to refresh at home. And if it had not been for her, I would have gone into labor by myself. I didn't know how to ask for help. I still don't. I don't know. I just felt like a burden for the most part. And the less I asked made me feel a little better. So I didn't ask her. I just waited. Some nurses would come into my room and sit there and play with the baby. It felt like they knew I was alone. And this was their way of saying, hey, we're here. There were these two specific nurses who would come in there, greet me, check on me. They were not assigned to my room. They would come in and get the baby and love on the baby and just sit there. But I never saw them after these instances. Whilst I was deep in thought, this always bubbly and energetic woman walked in the room and said, Heskan, beaming with a smile, which means, hey you, how are you? And she headed straight to where the baby was and picked him up. I sat up smiling and I said, hello my Mfundisi, which means hello my Mfundisi. We exchanged greetings in a short conversation and she said, well, which means I've come to take you home, get ready. So I got out of bed and took a quick shower. After we got our discharge papers, I was wheeled to the door where the car was parked. We boarded and we headed out. We got into the car and I contemplated over and over again whether to ask her to pass through the pharmacy so I could get some of the medication I needed for pain. I gathered up the courage to ask and she said absolutely. We got to the parking lot of the pharmacy and she said, Chindipa prescription dinotora, which means give me the prescription and I'll go get the medication for you. She was in a prayer line and I really did not want to bother her. And so I said, it's okay, mother, I'll go. She asked if I was sure and I said, yeah. I opened the door, I put my feet on the ground. I tried to lift my leg, but it felt like a sack of rocks. A heavy bag of stones was tied to it. So I tried to lift my other leg and it was the same result. It must have been the medications and the epidural. I looked back in the car and contemplated if I should retract my statement, but I decided to let me push through. So I slowly walked to the pharmacy. I got to the counter and saw the Indian lady who had always been helpful to me throughout the journey. She would always find discounts and she beamed with happiness and she said, oh my God, is baby here? I said, yes, weakly. And she said, okay, let me fill out your prescription, sit, so that you don't have to come back again. And so I took a seat and I waited. While I sat there waiting for my medication to be filled, I remembered that I had met some angels in this very shop as well. I would walk about maybe 20 to 30 minutes or so to get groceries. In the Texas heat, Texas gets so hot that people have heat strokes. So I would usually wait until it was getting a little late and the sun was going down, and I would walk and go and get some stuff done. But it'd still be hot but bearable. On this one particular day, I walked into the store and this man who was standing behind those taste tables where they have samples of food saw me and he walked towards me like he had met me before, so excited, and said in what sounded like a Greek accent, hello, how are you? it's a boy, right? Right? I was shocked because it was a boy. How did you know? He said, I know, he's sitting up. Come with me. Come get a cookie. And he held my hand and walked with me to the table and gave me a cookie, and I ate it. And I remember just walking away from that table feeling seen and feeling cared for. The second time I saw him, though, his demeanor was a bit different. He was very serious, and I'd been stressing about not knowing how I was going to make rent or buy preparation for the baby. And he walked up to me and chatted, "Hi, my friend, how are you?" I said, "I'm okay." And he said, "Don't worry about anything, okay? God will provide." Again, stunned. I thanked him for the encouragement, and then went our separate ways, and I never saw him again. And after that, I remember one time in one of those groups, women's groups on WhatsApp, someone had posted that they had extra baby milk if they knew anyone who needed it. Someone who knew my situation then reached out to me and told me, "Hey, do you need milk? If you do, reach out to this person." So I texted them and let them know that I was in need of the milk, but I couldn't come and get it. I didn't have a vehicle, transportation at that time. Said, "No worries, I'll come and bring it over the weekend." And she did. And when I saw her coming out of the car, I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, that woman looks clean. Will I ever feel like that? Will I ever look that well put together? And she was just, not that I wasn't showering or anything like that, but she just looked, those people smell good from a distance? Yeah, that was it. And in my mind I thought, she's probably snobbish, but she wasn't. She was actually very nice and down to earth. We chatted a bit and she gave me the milk and went away. And it's crazy because the milk that we had at home was running out. It was way below the halfway threshold, and it was not going to last me long enough until the next time I was due to get more from the government assistance program. And I guess this was God's way of answering prayers. And that's why sometimes when you get that nudge to help someone, maybe God is asking you to take a part in the answering of someone else's prayer. It's not always easy. We always dismiss it, but I really believe that God relies on us to do our part to help each other to make things better. And so many angels and miracles. I remember one time I was due to get my baby his second month vaccinations or something like that, and I had called the ride from the government assistance program. They came, they took my mother and I, and we headed out. There had been a snowstorm warning, but I figured I would be done by then. We got there, we got served, and then by the time we were done, the clinic had to close, so we couldn't wait in the waiting room. So me and my mother and my 2-month-old baby in his car seat went and stood outside. It started to snow more heavily, and it was getting darker and darker. And the driver had reached out and told me he didn't know what time he was going to come because he was stuck on the highway because of the sleet on the roads and the snow on the roads. And it actually showed on the tracker that it was indeed stuck. And so there we were standing there, cold, getting dark, until this lady and her son passed by us. He was about 11, I think, and she said, "Do you guys need a ride home?" And I immediately said, "Yes, ma'am." And she took us home. And it just made me realize, there's a song we used to sing at church when we were young that went something like, "Monova paje kujamambo. And that song had literally a new meaning for me because I finally understood that God's provision is not always a pantry full of food or a bank full of millions or a closet full of clothes and shoes, but that sometimes provision is being given what you need when you really need it in the amount that you needed. And so that means sometimes you pray that, "God, I do not have anything to eat for supper," and somehow by 5:59 he makes a way and he brings supper, and nothing more than supper, no desserts, no breakfast. And you pray again the next day and he brings breakfast. So he provides as needed until maybe he can trust you with more, and just how much faithful you are with the little that he gives you, because that's how you build your faith. If God can show up at 5:59 when you're almost giving up or not having food, and he shows up when life hits, you remember those moments and you trust that it doesn't matter what situations look like. He always comes through. Hey, hon, your meds are ready. The lady at the counter said, and I got up and I went and I got my medication and slowly walked back to the car. My Fundisi was waiting and she took us home. When we got home, I was surprised because she also took out a suitcase. She was there to help me out. I thought I was going to be by myself with the baby. My name is Tendai Taringa, signing out.